Hello and welcome to the Geoeconomic Agenda, a new Pacific-centric, globally minded podcast that investigates the connections between economics, geopolitics, business, and society. My name is Paul Nadeau, and I'm a visiting researcher here at the Institute of Geoeconomics, a private and independent think tank in Tokyo. The IOG, led by Dr. Kazuto Suzuki, is part of the International House of Japan's Asia-Pacific Initiative, and aims to bring together experts from around the world to conduct research and build a community that connects voices from different sectors to deepen and share knowledge of geoeconomic issues in Japan, Asia, and worldwide. So what is geoeconomics anyway? One way to think about it is the fusion of economics and security. It's the idea that economics, security, business, strategy, and more can no longer be thought of as separate things, but as parts of a whole that interact with each other. In other words, geoeconomics asks how countries use geoeconomic activity to achieve strategic goals and how global economics can impact national strategies. Geoeconomics can be thought of as a direct tool of national power through sanctions or aid packages in the ways that states use economic instruments to achieve national goals. Or geoeconomics can be indirect, by setting the rules of the road and incentivizing countries to buy into the system. But more than anything, it's an essential framework for understanding how global affairs are connected, from food prices to climate change to war to digital policies and beyond, and that you can't think about geostrategy without thinking about economics. It isn't an accident that the Geoeconomic Agenda is based out of Tokyo. Japan's government has been one of the first to really think about how to incorporate economic security into its policies. Its companies have thought about how to address supply chain security years before it was cool, quote unquote, with the disruptions during the COVID-19 pandemic. Japan's experience as a first mover in this space is something that we'll highlight throughout the show, while also bringing in guests and features from throughout the Pacific region. Each podcast will start with a rundown of the latest policy news in the geoeconomic space. Things such as the new U.S. export controls on advanced semiconductors, updates on supply chain security, the latest out of the U.S. Congress on trade policy, and much, much more. We'll also feature interviews with guests from across the Asia-Pacific region and beyond, from the policy world, academia, business, and more. We'll talk about trade agreements, investment flows, semiconductors, chips, the experience of private companies doing business in China, and more. Finally, we'll close out each podcast with our Did You Know series, a short current or historical fact or piece of geoeconomic miscellany that might have flown under the radar, but that might have big implications down the road, might have been lost among the other news, or is simply something we found fascinating that we want to share. But we want to know what you want to hear about, as well as take your questions for our show, so send us an email at geoeconomicagenda@ihj.global. We're excited to bring this to you, so stay tuned for more. Be sure to like, rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, tell your friends, and most of all, keep listening. Thanks for joining us, and you'll be hearing more from us soon.